So thank you so much, Dr. Borbon. Thank you for being with us. Dr. Borbon is actually a UCSF class of 2018 graduate, and he was a co-president of International Society of Pharmacoeconomics Outcomes Research, and also the president of CSHP during his time at pharmacy school. And after that, he was a commercial insights and strategy postdoctoral fellow at Janssen. So I just want to give you a chance to introduce yourself, maybe a little bit about your upbringing and background, and possibly some like core values that you hold. And it could be pharmacy, it could be non-pharmacy. Thank you for joining us again.
Yeah, well, no, thank you for having me. Pleasure to be here. Pleasure to have this conversation. As you mentioned, my name is Jeremy Borbon. I'm currently a senior marketing manager at Amgen. As you highlighted, UCSF alum. I think you also missed maybe I was a San Diego State, so go Aztecs alum. In terms of my upbringing, so growing up, I did move around a lot. I was born in New York, moved to Las Vegas when I was in high school. Finally went to San Diego State for undergrad, and then UCSF for pharmacy school. Then moved to the East Coast for my fellowship at Janssen. Moved back to LA or the West Coast for my job now at Amgen. And then most recently, as of June of last year, moved to Las Vegas to be close to family. So that transitions to what my core values are. The first is family, right? So I despite, as I moved around a lot, my one thing that I appreciated was being able to see different things, different cultures, different people. But at the end of my journey, I knew that what I wanted was to move back to close to family. And so I had the opportunity to do that with this job. I'm currently working remote for Amgen. So if you have any questions about that, happy to answer any of those questions. The second, I would say, core value that I have is really personal growth. And I want to differentiate that between personal growth and achievement. I think achievement is really trying to, set goals and achieve those goals, right? Whereas personal growth for me, I just love growing. I just love learning and being able to kind of take those skill sets and apply those skill sets and then teach others, right? Partly why I love doing kind of interviews like these, whether it's on camera or just one-offs with people that I meet, because I want to be able to share what I've learned. And then the third core value that I'll highlight is really just building a community. As I moved around a lot in those different cities, I know it's like being the new kid and having to make those relationships. And so anything that I do, I try to get people together, especially those with common interests, and try to achieve something with those like-minded individuals.
Well, marketing. So why marketing? And how are you able to use your pharmacy experiences to break into a specific marketing role?
Yeah, great question. So when people say why marketing and how do you incorporate your PharmD background, the first response I have is, marketing really is everything, and it's in everywhere throughout our lives. And so what is really marketing? For me, the simple definition is understanding your customer's need and being able to deliver on that need, right? And so when people think about marketing, they think about sales, and sales is kind to convince someone. But marketing is really taking the information out there that you know about a customer and providing a solution for them, right? Meeting those two together. And so for me, I've always had kind of like a business mindset. When you're in pharmacy school, you learn about MOAs, you learn about, why a particular doctor or why you might recommend a treatment over another. And often it's the efficacy, the safety, right? It's an algorithm and the guidelines. But oftentimes when you go in the real world, there could be certain beliefs that a provider might have on why they choose a medication. And where do those beliefs stem from, right? And those beliefs typically stem from the marketing messages or the story that a brand has about itself. So a perfect example is I worked on the cardiovascular space when I was at Janssen, supporting Xarelto, common anticoagulant that everyone's aware of. If you really look at Xarelto versus Eliquis, you can kind of argue that the safety or the efficacy is better for one drug or another. But, and it's hard because depending on how you cut the data, you could say, again, one or the other. But at the end of the day, the belief by most providers is that Eliquis was safer, right? Again, whether that's substantiated or not, it's up for debate.
Right.
But that belief was there, right? Similar to like when you think about an iPhone versus a Samsung. I think the last 10 years,
Yeah.
if you match up the features together, right? I think a Samsung phone would probably beat it out. But why do we have an iPhone? It's because for us, the value of the simplicity, everyone having it, right? Like those are the key insights that Apple was able to understand, that they want something simple. They want something that everyone has and be part of, that community. And so with marketing, I think that's just so fascinating. I love learning about it. And then the second question is, so marketing is one kind of function within the broader commercial space. And once you kind of have an understanding of marketing and what it takes to be a successful product, you can go into other things such as like business development, where you're looking for that next product that's going to be integrated from R&D into your pipeline, and then eventually get that into market, right? And unless you understand what it takes to market a drug, it's hard to really evaluate if a drug is going to be successful in the future.
Genius. Yeah. So I want to ask, what do you do on like the daily basis? Like what does your day-to-day look like? And what do you like most about your job?
Yeah, so I would say the day-to-day changes a lot for me. I guess I'll give a little bit of background of in terms of like my core responsibilities. So I'm the omni-channel lead for a drug called Blincyto, which is a drug used for acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which is a rare disease. Only 5,000 patients a year get diagnosed with that disease. And on my team, as the omni-channel lead, I'm responsible for making sure that our story, our brand story, is communicated effectively and synergistically across multiple different channels. And so what do I mean by multiple channels? I mean through digital, through our field, and then through like speaker programs or other peer-to-peer programs. So in the past, the approach would always be called multi-channel. So these channels existed before, but they aren't really talking with one another, right? So what I mean by that is, let's say on the digital front, we were saying that our drug's efficacy was the best. But when a rep talks to a provider, they might really talk about how to administer the drug. And then from a peer-to-peer standpoint, from a speaker program standpoint, they might talk about their own experience, but they're not talking together, and they don't know what one of them are saying across those different channels. So the goal is to provide that information. What are people saying? Taking that information and informing those different groups so that they could have one story, or to kind of provide kind of this holistic engagement plan with the stakeholders that are listening to our content through those different channels.
What is some, like, if you have any, what is some career advice for future pharmacists and current students who are looking to go into marketing?
Yeah, so I would say, similar to yourself, right? Reach out to those who are in the marketing field, and ask a lot of questions. Try to peel back a layer in terms of like the day-to-day. The other thing too is, again, what I said up front is, what is marketing? Marketing is understanding your customer, right? And so on the marketing side right now, my main customer is healthcare providers, doctors, pharmacists, nurses. The nice thing about being a pharmacist in the industry is what it's like to be a customer, because you have the rotational experiences. And as a company, we pay a lot of money to understand what you already experience on a day-to-day basis. And I'll give a perfect example. All right. One example that I love to give is, when I was in pharmacy school, I was a pharmacy intern, and I would spend most of my weekends filling Pyxis machines and drawing IV bags. And I remember it was like my first week at Janssen, and some people were asking like, oh, how come our starter packs aren't really being used a lot and our competitors is, right? It's the same exact starter pack, same indication, same cost. We have the same coupon programs, but same thing, right? Why aren't we seeing any utilization in the emergency room for our product? And I was like, I wasn't paying attention. I was like kind of multitasking, and I looked up and I said, can I see our utilization rate in the ER room again? And I was like, oh, have we thought about that? Maybe they're not stocking our drug in the Pyxis machines. And they're like, why wouldn't we stock their drug in the Pyxis machines? I said, well, oftentimes, like, it's too big to fit in there. I know in my hospital, like, I would have to like store it somewhere else, and or I would have to store it in the pharmacy and have to walk it down to the floor.
Yeah.
And everyone was like, oh my God, is that true? And so they called up one of the sales reps, and they spoke with the technicians there. Like, oh yeah, it's true. Like, we can't fit in there. And
Right.
so we had to ask for like a different size bin within the Pyxis machine so they could fit it in there.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the stuff that you would never think about that's important, but it impacted the business in one hospital, which was a major hospital that was prescribing a lot of our medication. So when you're on rotations, when you're talking to your providers, think about like, how could this impact, the business, or, just remember that everything you do can be meaningful, and sharing those insights once you go into, an interview or asking industry professionals.
So like, do you have any advice for students currently applying to, say, fellowship positions? Any general advice?
Yeah, so I know when I was applying to fellowships, I was looking through brochure after brochure, and all of the positions sound so enticing. Yeah. You see it's in this glossy photo, you get these beautiful people on the brochures, and you're like, I want to be one of them. But ultimately, when it comes down to, finding the right role, you do need to understand what the specific roles and responsibilities are for that company and for that particular position, because there's a million different medical affairs, like a million different type of marketing roles, right? And on paper, they might say you're going to do X, but when you actually talk to the fellows who are in those roles, it might be less of what it says in there, or it might be more, which is a good thing or a bad thing, right? Like, some people, they thrive on being able to like have the same experience for 2 years because they really get that depth of knowledge. Others might want to rotate and see because they have no idea what it's like to be in industry and the different roles in industry and the nuances between those roles. So they want to see the different types of opportunities out there, right? Similarly, I remember when I was interviewing, I had 9 interviews, right, during the mid-year process, which is kind of average. And the first 4, I completely bombed, absolutely bombed. I didn't, because usually there's multiple rounds with the interviews. I didn't make it through the first round, and I would go back to a table where all my friends sat, and they're like, oh yeah, I have my second round later today, and I was the only one who didn't get a second round interview. And I was like, what's wrong with me? And part of it was because the people I was interviewing with, there wasn't a fit. Like, we did not just see eye to eye in terms of like how we approach things, what we felt were core values. My experience, maybe they felt like my experiences wasn't up to par with some of the other people. And then through my interviews 5 through 9, I got second rounds, I got on-sites for a lot of those, right? And it's because we just happened to click, and what they saw was maybe I didn't have as much industry experience as others, but I had the potential to grow. And and then our interests were similar outside of work, right? So a lot of that, is kind of, it's very cliche, but it's so true. They have this saying where it's like, can this person pass the airplane test? And what they mean by that is usually, pre-COVID, obviously, when you go for interviews, or not interviews, when you go to work for conferences, you would have to be with your boss for an extended amount of period. And could you have a conversation with this person for 6 hours on a plane. We're going from New York to California, right? Could you stay with them for the dinners after an all-day conference and talk about work and leisurely things, right? So a lot of is fit. So I would say don't try to be someone you're not, and try to find that fit, but obviously also shine in terms of like who you are, and make sure that that's clear. Long-winded answer, but that's kind of all my experience that I've seen.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I hear that time and time again too, even from professionals, is like, show your professionalism, shine, talk about your strong suits, and have everything set, but also bring your personality to the interview, right? And try to connect with the people, and they're gonna remember how you made them feel, like at the end of the day. So I think that's great advice. I want to take it back to like pharmacy school.
Yep.
So like, what do you have any advice for like current pharmacy students? I know I'm asking for advice for all levels, but say like, P1s coming into pharmacy school new, any advice or anything you would do differently coming into pharmacy school?
Yeah, I would say for P1 through P4, two quick things. I would say one, keep an open mind, right? Like I came in thinking clinical pharmacy. But I would attend programs for other organizations that were outside of CSHP, for example, right? And then when I remember after getting my fellowship as a P4, all my classmates are like, "What's a fellowship? How come I didn't hear about this?" And I had to tell them politely. I was like, "Look, we had the same opportunities here, right? I just happened to explore those options earlier and kind of learn what those were." And some of them ended up like kind of regretting not keeping that open mind. But on the flip side, I'll also add that do you, right? Like that's kind of my mentality. I do think that there's this allure when it comes to industry because it's unknown when you're in pharmacy school, and there's this flexibility. Marketing sounds sexy, but I know a lot of people who would hate my job, absolutely hate it, right? And they're the type of people who they need that direct patient care. They need to see a patient improve, and they belong in a hospital because that's who they are. But they were trying to get sucked in. It's like, oh, maybe I should have applied. And it's like, no, like this is for you, and this was for me. And but not to say like you couldn't do it in the future. So you should also keep in mind. So like those are the two things that I would say is, I think everyone in pharmacy school, because it's such a small group, they are kind of it's a naturally competitive environment, and you're trying to see like what's out there, and seeing if the grass is greener. But ultimately, you have to stay true to who you are, and kind of follow that.
Right. Yeah. Man, thank you so much. I think we basically answered all of my questions, even just through casual, candid conversation. So thank you so much, Dr. Borbon, for joining me today. Touched on a lot of great topics. Spoke about core values. Spoke about how what marketing is, even outside of what we know the definition to be. Great advice for P1s to P4s, fellows, and current professionals. So I wanted to extend a thank you again, and appreciate you coming out and speaking to me. This is going to be very valuable for pharmacy students.
Of course, no problem. And if you ever want to reach out to me and ask any questions, set some time for those who are watching, feel free to find me on LinkedIn. Happy to have a one-off conversation anytime.
Perfect. Thank you.